Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V, where we are intentional about connecting you with the leaders that have overcome so that you know that the possibilities are endless. It's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches nurses how to work from their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time. Our featured guest today is Jamie Bryan, who I have been seeking out for a long time to interview. Jamie is the owner and operator of Hydrate for Life, award-winning aesthetic and wellness concierge med spa, serial entrepreneur, mentor, coach, consultant, with a goal in mind to not only create generational wealth, but also have an extensive, impactful reach. In addition to Jamie's career as a nurse entrepreneur, she is a faith based, family oriented mom. Jamie has a son and two fur babies, and in their home, they like to have fun. So, welcome, Jamie. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. V. Thank you for having me. Good morning, everybody.
I love it. So now, what was your first degree was in business, but you decided to go into nursing. Now, what prompted this decision?
Well, so in full transparency, the reason why I got into nursing was because I didn't know, I was unsure myself. I was very young, obviously, 19. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do in business. I felt like I was very soft still and naive. And my ex-husband was military. And when the birth of my son came, Xavier, I was kind of worried, like, wow, what's going to happen if I end up raising this child alone? I need to have some sort of a career. And so I did. I was allowing fear at the time even to kind of guide me because I didn't know how I was going to be, what I was going to do with a business degree. And it just so happened at that time, it was early 2000s, where the nursing shortage was extremely high, kind of like it is now. It was constantly in the newspaper, on the news. And so I decided to try it out, and I got a job in the hospital as a unit secretary, and started working in the hospital, and I loved it.
I
Haven't looked
love
back since, till now.
it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Where you go where the trends are going. You
Hmm.
understand. You did your research.
Yep.
I love it. So now you started as the tech in the ER, which
Yep.
that craziness that we all are drawn to, right? So we know that there's an expansion of the scope when you become an RN. So what would you say to some of the major differences between going from the tech role to the RN role? So just like what were some of the things that you noticed that was like very different?
Well, first I want to say, I'm originally from Wyoming. So in the state of Wyoming, and that's where I lived at the time, in the state of Wyoming, you had to become a CNA before you even were allowed to apply for the nursing program. So after getting my CNA, I got the job as a tech in the ER and cross-trained to learn those skills. And I mention that because it's a key piece to this, being there, doing that hands-on skill with mentors, other nurses that are older and more experienced. Having to do that definitely helped me transition very well into the role of RN. And I think for myself, much better than if I would have just gone straight to get, traditional BSN and then jumped into an RN role. There were a lot of differences. However, in the ER, everybody works together very well. And then when you're good and you have a good team, sometimes your team teaches you how to do things that maybe you otherwise wouldn't get to do if you didn't have a good team. And so there was a lot that I got to see and do prior to actually becoming an RN, that by the time I became an RN, my critical thinking skills were definitely more on point. Just picking up on things and learning how to really assess patients for those more critical needs a lot better. So I think that also there was no real like, oh, you used to be a tech, so now you still have to do this, and that. No, it was, again, we had, a pretty decent team everywhere I went because I worked a lot of places. And I think that just learning how to navigate through that critical thinking and really understanding that I was not the final responsible party, because of course we work under physicians, but I was more responsible than previously when I was just had tasks to do and complete.
I love it. So now, you how long have you been a nurse?
Oh boy, I've been a nurse for 14 years.
14 years.
Hmm.
I think that is it's interesting because I can't remember, because we're in North Carolina, and now you have to have your CNA prior to going into the nursing program as well. But when when I first went into nursing, you did not. And I
Right.
think that that is one of the things that helps nurses, helps you in the emergency department, right?
Mhm.
Because when you go into that specialty, it's really, really, it can be difficult, right? It
Right.
can be difficult going from, because I mean, I went from not knowing a thing. Like, I didn't
Right.
know you gave Tylenol for a fever.
Right.
I knew nothing. Okay. You went from go, going from that to the emergency department, but I went to med surge first. But I mean, it can be a difficult thing. So I mean, I think it's a good thing that you have to be a CNA prior to going into nursing school. Now, you had a son, and
I
that
did.
son only survived for only a few hours after birth. Now, tell the audience what happened.
So yes, in 2010, I had another son. His name was Elijah. He was born with the cord wrapped around his neck, so he didn't have enough oxygen to his brain when he was born. And although they tried extensively to, you know, keep him with us, he did not survive. And so yeah. Anyway, that was in 2010, and it was a pivotal point in life, not just my career, but life.
Now, why do you say it's a pivotal point in life? Because, go ahead.
It was I was always kind of a workaholic, and people who know me now will probably say, "You mean you used to work more?" You know, because they still know me as a workaholic. But I always wanted to work, work, work. Like for me, I always wanted to make sure that our family, we could do stuff. I'm all about just not having, like, I'm not very materialistic, but I always just wanted to have money, make sure that the fear of being without, I guess, always scared me. So anyway, but after that happened with Elijah, I learned, even though we knew it, I worked in the emergency room. There, tomorrow's not promised, basically. And I have Xavier, my other son, that still needed his mom. And so I really had to learn to balance, like, work-life balance really had to come into play. And I did definitely start focusing more on being home and not working all the time, you know what I mean?
I
So,
got you. I
mm,
got you. And so, do you think that because you had Xavier, do you think that that helped you get through, or
definitely,
definitely?
definitely,
Gotcha. Like,
because my ex-husband did not cope very well, and somebody had to keep things going. And Xavier in himself, he was 7 when it happened, so he was old enough to understand. Um, and just trying to make sure that, of course, we are allowed to feel our feelings, of course, but trying not to get so sucked into them where it just consumes our life and we cannot move on. So you definitely hit the nail on the head. Already having Xavier definitely helped cope, because I had to, because of him. Even though I
gotcha.
had another person, I was married, but that person was not coping well. So somebody had to, fight for Xavier.
Gotcha. Now, so tell me, what were some of your thoughts and feelings at the time, that, and how were you able to get through it? Like, what was your thought process during that time? Like,
Um, a little bit of it was guilt. You always think, like, is there something that I could have done differently to make this outcome different? A little bit of it was the why me. things that I think are typical kind of reactions, like, did I do something wrong? Why is this happening to me? But after a few years, it took me a few years to finally address the trauma, really. And because I just turned into, like, I have to do something to make sure this family, keeps going. So I didn't actually grieve for a few years. And then by the time I finally did, um, I came to a place where I was able to make peace. So now when I tell people the story, I tell them, God gave us our own um, angel to watch over us, our own guardian angel. So me, Xavier, and his dad all have our very own guardian angel, because everybody's so busy up there, and the Lord has to look out for so many people. And I'm clumsy, so he had to give us our own person to kind of keep an eye on us. So I kind of tried to change the way that I was thinking, and that guilt and that just fight through, and I actually dealt with the feelings. And you know that's honestly how I feel about it. It's like, we, us, our family, even though we're not all together, we have our very own guardian angel. We have our own little person, our own little Elijah up there looking out for us, and guiding us through and making sure that we're safe.
I love it. Now,
Mhm.
the divorce statistics are high among people who lose their child. What are some of the key factors and the reasons that you think that this is true based on your experience?
Based on my personal experience, honestly, people cope differently with trauma. And I tell people, we had a very loving home, but there was just a traumatic experience that couldn't survive that. Now, our relationship could not survive that. And it's unfortunate, but like I said, people handle trauma differently. I immersed myself in work, and he had to cope however he felt necessary. And it just ended up, you know, it wasn't good for the home, for the household. Either one of us, not to say that either one of us coped properly, but we definitely didn't do it together. So I can see why the statistic is high, and I still to this day wish that the outcome would have been different, even though that was 11 years ago. But everything happens for a reason, and it's very unfortunate. My advice to people out there really is, any traumatic experience that you go through, is if you have somebody that's there, that you can try to go through together, definitely make sure that you do. Another thing I will add is that my son and I went to counseling. We went to therapy, and it wasn't immediate, but it was, shortly after. But I wanted, again, him to be able to understand that he was allowed to feel whatever it was he was feeling, and I needed to handle my own stuff, because all the balls were dropping. My marriage was falling apart. I just lost a son. It was a lot all at once. So therapy, definitely. To this day, I still go to therapy for whatever I need to go for.
And I think that that is important because, it's becoming more normal, or it's becoming more normalized for, African Americans to go to therapy and to seek it out. But I think that it has in the past, and especially 11 years ago, not been something that was so prevalent in something that you would have done, right? Because it was
Right.
such a taboo subject.
Yep.
But the reality is that, I like what you said when you said that you told your son, I want you to feel what you feel,
Hmm.
right? Let him feel it, let him go through it, because, you down the road, these things happen and you
Hmm.
don't know why they're happening, right?
Right.
All these negative effects, and if you change the root, then you
Right.
change the fruit, right? And
Right.
so you on the front end were able to get through that, and is rocking it out today, rocking it out.
We're
Now,
trying. We're trying to do our thing. We still, like I said, we still have our challenges. Both Xavier and I, emotionally, there's still things that we have to work through. But I think you bringing up the fact that in the African American community, going to therapy is not very common. More so now, yes, than before. But sometimes you just have to go against the grain. If you feel like this is, if and sometimes you also have to stop talking to your family. And I hate to say that because your family is going to be one of your biggest support systems. But at the same time, your grandma doesn't know. She's like, no, what you going talking to them people about your business for, right? Um, Not that my grandmother did. I'm just saying, using it as an
Right.
example. But really, if you feel like something like, I wish I had an outlet, I wish I had somebody to talk to. I mean, that somebody is out there, and it's in a very non-biased way, because they're professionals, they're very highly trained, and they are not going to do, they're not going to do anything to harm you. So definitely do your research. If something you ever thought about, I'm telling you, I encourage it.
And one of the things, because my mom suffered a miscarriage as well. So, well, it was a miscarriage. Not a miscarriage, but a stillborn. So, but prior to, she knew that the baby was going to be born, deceased. And one thing that I think is a little bit different is that we're in this world where we see everybody else, and we see everybody else doing their own thing. We see everybody else, having babies and having these experiences. And then, that's the reason why we sometimes internalize that, and we're like, well, why couldn't it be that way for us? Right. And
Mhm.
so I'm not sure why but she dealt with it very differently. Like when she had me, I came after the baby. So I was a
Mhm.
rainbow baby. And she was like, and they were like, you need to abort her. And she was like, nope. That's gonna be my miracle baby. And
Oh.
so and it was really sweet because I ended up walking across the stage for my doctoral degree on her 89th birthday. So it was just
Oh,
amazing, amazing, amazing.
that is awesome.
So I love, love, love. But I think that you're so right in that. Now you said that you co-authored the research for the blood test for TB. Like
I did.
you the boss chick. So which means that you are truly the real one. Okay. Now how does that feel to be a part of this cutting edge research?
Honestly, Dr. V, I think that was for me, that was probably another turning point in my career, because I do have a passion for public health. And when I started working with I was a nurse consultant for the CDC and the Air Force. They partnered on this project. And for me, when I started on this project, I wasn't somebody of authority, I'll say, right? But because I developed really good relationship, and I proved to myself, the head of the TB division, that I knew what I was talking about, and I was very, just on it all the time. That's how I ended up becoming more involved and ended up being co-authored. So I love it. I love to hear people talking about, oh, you got to get your QFT. And I think to
What is a
myself,
what is a QFT?
sorry, it's the blood test for tuberculosis called quantiferon, and short for that is QFT. Mhm.
Okay.
So yeah, it's very exciting. Still to this day, I live here in Atlanta now. At the time, I didn't. I was in Texas, but still to this day, we have some conversations or some emails back and forth about something new that is, we gotta, instead of using 3 tubes, and started out it was 3 tubes, and now it's down to one. Like we finally figured out to get it down to just one heparinized tube and process properly. So it's things like that, just going through those steps. It was a 5-year project that we worked on kind of like full time, and I love it. It really makes me excited to even talk about it. It's like that was one of my babies. Like my businesses are my babies, my human child is my baby, my 4-leggeds are my babies, and then the research study, that's another baby.
Well, I'm just like, when you said that, I was like, well, you better do it, my friend. Now you own your own med spa and you do IV hydration. Now, why did you choose this route in business?
When I started Hydrate for Life, I knew that I wanted to own like a full something. I wasn't sure exactly if it was going to be a med spa, if it was going to be like a wellness clinic. But I was working with somebody else at the time who was finishing their nurse practitioner. So the IV hydration, it was just starting to get a little bit more popular at the time. And I said, I can start with this because it's within my scope. I had, physicians that were willing to work with me. And then as I grew, I could expand. And even the IV hydration will always just be a service line offered through whatever I expand to. But I wanted to get started. So that's why I chose IV therapy to start with. And then as things kind of started, momentum started going, that's when I started adding the aesthetics. So I started adding aesthetics. So Hydrate for Life was aesthetics and wellness. And then I recently I partnered with somebody who was doing some of the non-medical stuff or was interested in doing some of the non-medical. And we are opening a full service med spa.
I love it.
Mhm.
Love it. And then, the thing about you is that, you're always wearing those hats and, you're always real cute, right? So, that's right up your
Well, thank
alley.
you.
It's right up your alley. Like I would have
Thank
never
you.
thought to open a med spa. It's just not, I'm not that creative side of things.
Surprisingly, when I first started thinking about adding Botox, dermal fillers, just that the beauty aspect of it, because really with IV hydration, I focus more on the wellness overall rather than, it's very popular for hangover relief, and you'll see that a lot of ads about that. But when I started adding the beauty services, I had to convince myself, like, believe it or not, and I'm glad you say, I always have myself put together. That's what you guys see, because on a normal basis, I'm like, mm-mm, mm-mm. Yeah,
Well, you
yeah.
you do it well once you come out,
Well,
okay?
thank you. I try.
Now you are in business with another nurse. Now, what is some advice you would give someone that is going into business together?
Communication with any relationship, that's very important, but definitely communication. Make sure that the person you're going into business with, you trust. The person I've decided to partner with now was definitely not the first um, trial. But make sure it's somebody that you trust. Make sure that their vision and their mission is similar to yours. Make sure that they have the drive, to be successful as an entrepreneur, because somebody can also bring you down, as much as they can help build you up. I encourage people to work together, whether it's nurses or non-nurses or a nurse and a non-nurse, whatever the titles are, because we can do a lot more together, and I always tell people that, but I just you can do a whole lot more together with somebody else. It's a completely different. Even if you have similar thought processes, your mindsets are usually different, and the other person can bring something to you that you may not looked at a certain way or thought about or whatever. So that's why the trust and the communication are really important too, because you want to make sure that whatever it is that they are telling you, it's not just to lead you astray. But definitely it's I encourage it, but just make sure to do it with the right person. And as soon as you get those feelers, like once you start feeling like, I don't know about this, don't be like me. Don't keep on giving chances and chances and chances. Cut it off. Cut it off right away.
So you apparently you were in a partnership with someone that you didn't. So now give me describe like a time when you had those fillers and what were those fillers?
Oh, I can give you a couple of examples.
Okay.
So I did try to, I've been looking to expand this now for about a year to bring in, because I know how to do medical cosmetic facials, and I wanted somebody who could do um, regular facials and waxing and just some of the esthetician type duties. So I did look to partner with an esthetician, and I thought, man, this is going to be a match made in heaven, right? Aesthetics nurse and a esthetician. I mean, we're about to do this thing. And she was an entrepreneur herself. So I'm like, okay, she already knows how to run a business. She had been doing it for quite a few years. She was afraid that I was going to end up more successful than her because my services were more expensive than hers before we even, kind of came together. And no matter how much I tried to explain, like, this is going to be a us thing, like we're going to become successful together, and I don't know, it was her own insecurities, to be honest with you. I don't know what she had dealt with in her life prior to trying to come together with me, but it didn't matter how much I tried to convince her, like, I'm not trying to take clients away from you. I'm trying to get us clients together so we can really do this thing. And for whatever reason, like I said, she just could not get that out of her head. And even though she never really said the words that I'm saying to you, I'm pretty smart. And even though I don't say a lot, I pick up on things very quickly. So it's the little things that she would say and do that I'm like, okay. So anyway, that got cut short. And I was really sad about it because I was very excited about, bringing on an esthetician, somebody who is considered an expert in their field. And then one of my physician friends was like, you're a nurse, why do you don't need an esthetician, like hire estheticians. And I'm like, there you go. So that was that. And then another time it was recently, I was going to kind of partner up with somebody, and they were really, they had their partner. So this person and I definitely communicated for a while, like months, and we had good vibes about each other. But once we got on a call with their partner, sometimes people listen to respond instead of listen to receive. And sometimes people just assume you don't know, so they try to overtalk you. And it was a very challenging conversation. When somebody's just firing questions at you and not even giving you the opportunity to answer, and then they accuse you of trying to basically screw them over. For me, I had the feelers. I'm like, this is not going to work, but I didn't have the courage to just say, nope, this isn't going to work, because of my relationship and communication with the other person. I'm like, man, but they're just not like that. What's going on? And the Lord works in mysterious ways. Luckily, He kiboshed that, and I didn't even have to deal with it. I was just like, oh, hey, something happened, so this is not going to work. And so
do you recommend contracts between the? Yes.
Yes.
TD Jake said, he's funny. He was like, I have a contract. We gonna sit down and have a contract. I mean, he was like, I have a contract for everything. And
right.
it makes, such a big difference, because then it gives everybody an understanding and it's written down, right? So
not just that, Dr. V, but think about it, even in your marriage, right? Your marriage is a contract. So when you enter a relationship, if you're dating and this person pisses you off 3 times in one day, you may be like, you know what, I'm out. Right? But if you're married, I know this is on a different scale, but I'm saying and that person pisses you off 3 times in one day, you may not fool with them for the rest of the day, but it forces you to communicate. You can't just bail because you're tired of dealing with it, So I know that's an extreme example, but
it's the truth.
Right.
So where can the audience find you?
Okay, you can find me on Instagram at Hydrate for Life, and that's Hydrate the number 4 LYFE. And you can also find me on Instagram at Elevated Lifestyle. So it's elevated and then lifestyle, also spelled with the Y.
I love it. Love it. Thank you so much. It was so good to have you here. So we will be starting another cohort of VP Nursing Business Academy in October. It's a 6-month comprehensive program that leads nurses and coaches working from their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time. If this interests you, we can jump on a call so that you're able to gain clarity and on how to create multiple streams of income. You can sign up at V as in Victor, P as in Paul, nursing.com. I ask that you like and share this podcast. And just know that Morning Infusion with Dr. V is where we're intentional about connecting with leaders such as Jamie that have overcome, so that you know that the possibilities are endless. You guys have a phenomenal rest of your day.